And all along the way, I mean, when you're conceiving your candidacy, did you have, and we've talked about a number of issues, is there a one that really is the most important to you, or 1, 2, and 3? Obviously, from looking at your site, you've given them a lot of thought. You have plenty of detail on there. You're not, fuzzy at all on what you believe. And your website is swendforvirginia.com, so people can go there, and you have a little tab for issues, so you're very clear about that. But how about for you personally, in terms of priority? Is there anything 1, 2, or 3 that you think are the most important things?
One of the things I definitely like to do is get more youth involved in the Republican movement. That's not even on the issues page, I don't think. But that's one of those practical effects you can have locally. I mean, for example, people from all the northern states, it seems like, and Northern Virginia send their kids to Virginia Tech. And instead of us making them more conservative, they make the area more liberal. So that's one of the areas I want to look at. There's also my wife's stuff is going off here. She's got like 12 devices behind me, and they all ring at the same time.
I think we all know something about that.
Yeah. And then, I mean, part of what I want to increase more is absolutely transparency. I mean, I think you saw in the Covington Middle School situation how it felt like nobody trusted each other, and it felt like there weren't really answers going around. And I want to have a conversation with how we can make it so people can actually talk to each other without the fear of lawsuits or whatever they were afraid of. Because ultimately we want to make sure we make the best decisions for our kids, right?
Sure.
And then another thing that is relevant to the campaign also is I have huge concerns. I don't know if your viewers are aware of this, but there's a wind turbine project going up right now. If you go from Alleghany County towards Botetourt, it's going to be just past Rainbow Gap on the left. And the roads are getting made right now. This was heavily pushed by Terry Austen. And if you hear Apex Clean Energy on their own website, they scan our mountains twice, and then they call them opportunities. And when I said he got another $200,000 in donations, $50,000 of that's from Dominion Energy. So I think he's up to $250,000 from Dominion Energy at this point. And I am very concerned. We talked about cities pushing their agendas on the rural areas. Apex Energy says that kind of energy should go from the coal fields to the coastline. That's what they say on their presentation. And they're trying to take Southwest Virginia for wind and Southeast Virginia for solar. And that has me greatly concerned because I think they're our mountains and not theirs.
Well, and so I'm at the last question. Here we are sitting at the dinner table, and, we've got to make a decision on which candidate we're going to vote for. And you've articulated a number of positions. Is there a paragraph that you can give voters on why they should choose you as opposed to your opponent, who's been in the House for several years and, they know him and all? You're a character that for the most part they don't know. So they have, they would have to make a choice to upset the apple cart. And why vote for Austen?
First, unfortunately, I have to make the case for why not to vote for the other guy.
Okay.
Because, as I mentioned before, there was a lot of money pumped into this to kind of re-envision himself. He consistently is the least conservative, like I'm talking 46th out of 49 in voting record from places like CPAC, Limited Gov, and Freedom Index. He's one of the least conservative delegates in Richmond. And obviously we are in a very, very conservative district. So and then on top of that, there's a reason that all the endorsements that he receives are basically talking about how much he spends. And there's a reason that he ends up voting for tax increases as a result. And I think on the taxation page, for example, it details that localities, if we pay 30% in taxes, localities only get like 4% of it. And then a bunch goes to the state and a bunch goes to the feds. I think we should kind of mix that up so that the localities aren't starving for funding and having to ask the state for favors, essentially. But the current leadership in Richmond wants the localities to ask the state for favors. I don't like that. I want you to have more power locally and not have to ask essentially Democrats in Richmond for favors. And that also gives them the influence to kind of put money out there to favor certain candidates that they like. If they're voting kind of Democrat-like and they hold a Republican seat, that lets them kind of manipulate the localities. And then I'd also ask yourself, in 12 years, what do you have to show legislatively? Almost nothing, I would argue. There have been no conservative legislative victories from the incumbent. And the only thing one of the things I've seen in Alleghany is the empty pad site. And I think we can do significantly better than that. And on top of that, I want to focus on what I consider to be root cause problems in government. You mentioned earlier the potential for laws expire after 20 years. But there's also the section where I want to classify much of the left as sectarian, because there's a portion of the Virginia Constitution that says no public funds shall go to sectarian groups. And sectarian is defined in the 1828 Webster Dictionary as essentially a philosophy that not everybody shares. It's not shared by the common man. And if I made a list of the things that the left believes in that they throw money at, public money at, that's a pretty big list of things that are not shared by the common man. And I don't think we should be financing social experiments broadly on our kids for their purposes. I think we should everything should be very, very cut and dry. And if they want to do those experiments on their kids, they can in their own homeschooling and private schooling environments that they have to create, not inside our public schools. So there's a lot of issues. It's hard for me to even pick some, like you mentioned on the website. But I want to go after the root cause of things, and that's part of me being a troubleshooter and an engineer. I don't want to prune the hedges and pretend like I have some massive victory. I want to try to change the conversation in the state and then possibly in the country.
Well, we got more of your time than we thought, and before you came on, I said, I don't know if I want to interview a guy that's got a nicer tractor and backhoe. I mean, that thing is, it's not a huge one, but I mean, I said he's out there working, so yeah. You just, and being an engineer, and you got, I would argue, probably plenty of humble background to you. I guess if you've been a waiter, you've been a mechanic, and I love the bus driver thing. That means, you've got a good feel for, how the regular guys, and
right.
We're just out here trying to make a living, and we don't want somebody telling us what to do every second,
Exactly. And that's one of the things too. Most of the politicians are the types of people who can pay somebody to do all the work for them. I am not. I'm still, I'll have to do my own roof. When my refrigerator breaks, I have to fix it. When the dishwasher breaks, I have to repair it. I do all the maintenance on my vehicle except for alignments because I don't have that machine, and wheel balancing or Freon because I don't want to mess with the Freon stuff. So I think there's an advantage to sending a normal person to Richmond because there's a lot of things I think that we can fight for.
Well, that was a great summation. And thanks again. We enjoyed getting to meet you and appreciate your time once again. For those Republican voters, the early voting ends on Friday, June 14th, and the formal primary is Tuesday, the 17th.
Yes,
sir. Look forward to seeing you again sometime, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the time.
Bye now.
Bye.